Hello and welcome to the Sac Off podcast. We are back once again. Last week there was going to be an episode, and then I, you know, needed to be pushed back. Then I needed to be pushed back again, and then we just decided, what, we're going to do a podcast next Tuesday, and so here we are again. And we talked about last week how it was the factory of sadness and just a lot of pain and misery. And while we were gone, what did the Kings do? They delivered even more pain and misery. Joining us as always, Oscar Hazel at Oscar Hazel. My good friend, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. Looking forward to the Jazz game today. I like the Jazz. Even it's a shame they didn't have Gobert though, because that would have been a fun game. See Boogie against Gobert. Although I don't think Gobert looks as good as he did last year. I know he put on looks like he's bigger and just not as agile and not flying around as much.
Yeah.
But should we start with at least the week we didn't get to preview? Turned out to be the good week for the Kings, even with 2 losses. So should we start there?
I think it was 3 losses even.
Uh,
Boston, Houston, Oklahoma City.
I know because we're going the week before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
2 losses that one and 2 wins.
Yeah.
Says the Bucks was the end of the road trip.
Yep.
The East, and I thought that was a pretty good game for the Kings. Like the ball was moving around really well. Rudy had a really good game against Giannis. He pretty much mirrored all his minutes and took advantage of Giannis pretty well. So I thought, and it was really positive. They had kind of the spells of the game beforehand, even though they lost that, they had that incredible third quarter against the Hornets. It felt like the whole of the Bucks game was kind of like that in terms of ball movement and that small 8-man rotation with DeMarcus Cousins still out. It looked like there was some kind of harmony starting to settle in, and he really had a really good game after kind of struggling beforehand and kind of almost since then he's been struggling. Is there anything you can think back to this game? I think this is when Darren Collison started to get his shooting legs under him, and he's really looked good at least this last week. And I think this is kind of the start of him getting his shooting under him.
Well, I mean, that's also something we talked about. It's because we want to see Rondo's minutes go down, but we mentioned, Collison really start stepping up and playing better. And as you mentioned,
they're still playing a lot together, which I still don't think works. But Rondo played 38 minutes this game, and Darren Collison 26. So it's kind of almost the opposite of the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So hopefully him getting it together more, making his shots, and just hoping that it led to less Rondo on the court. Although as of recently, it hasn't.
There's been the odd game, or obviously the one we'll get to later where he got a double tech. And so maybe that helped Collison as well, just being the only guy on the court for a while. And then I was kind of hoping that would sway Kyle to running with more just the 2-point guards playing separately. Because I just don't think that the 3-point guard look works when you have both your point guards, or the 2-point guard look works when both your point guards are just about 6 foot. I mean, Collison's probably smaller. And then your 2 guard that's playing up is 6'6" and not a great defender. And that's whether it's Bellinelli, McLemore, or James Anderson that we saw the last game. So I just don't think you can really play that way. Maybe you can play with the 2-point guards and then Caspian Gay. I think that can work. But then, I think Gay is just getting destroyed off the dribble with speed. He just can't handle it, which was a surprise that Giannis had. I mean, he had a pretty good game. He scored 21 points. But defensively, Giannis just couldn't hang with Gay. But yeah, I just don't see how, especially with the way they're switching the defense, you can't have 2 6-footers in a switching defense because you're just giving up so many mismatches everywhere.
Yeah. And this was another game
Is there
where.
anything to the Bucks game that?
Oh no, this was another game where another guard killed him with threes with Middleton.
And Middleton will do that, and I think that's partly you're playing. He's like so long. He's like 6'6". So then when you have point guards, he can just shoot right over them. And he had a really great third quarter, and so that was when I guess we had Bellinelli and Macklemore in most of the time when. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So it was the beginning of the game, and so there was a spell when Rondo was on, and right at the end of the game, he had like a flurry, and that's when the 2-point guards were on. So that's kind of like just a tough matchup. Although they ran out lineups of OJ May and Bayless. I mean, the Kings were lucky that Michael Carter-Williams was awful. I don't think he hit a single shot, just 4 free throws, and that's all he hit, and had a bunch of turnovers. So that kind of helped the Kings. And this was kind of a game they were pretty much always in control of. So I thought that was like going to be a positive start but unfortunately kind of tailed off after that. Should we move on? Is there anything from that game you wanted to, or should we move on to the Timberwolves game?
I think moving on to the Timberwolves.
So what was your kind of takes from that game?
I mean, also, I think this was game still without Boogie, which sucked the match.
Yeah,
Boogie
that was going to be such an exciting game to watch, like the two bigs go against each other.
Yeah, there was no Boogie, and I mean,
although Cat's not playing, Karl Anthony Towns is really not playing much.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
But I mean, Zach LaVine just finished with 19 points, 8 rebounds. It's the guard once again. Guards that were just killing.
Rondo was getting destroyed by Zach LaVine, and that's a real worry. Is Rondo's not good defensively, and then he's playing so much. It's like really an issue. Any like athletic guard, he just gets destroyed by, and he's like gambling. So then the switching doesn't work because he's always out of position for even the switch. So when he even gets switched onto a big, he's out of position, like trying to like steal in the passing lane. He's getting steals, but he's giving up so many easy buckets as well. And so LaVine was just cutting and getting straight to the basket, and had so much space to shoot, or just could blow past Rondo, and he couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, and it's like a problem we're discussing every week on here. This Rondo's defense, and especially in the fourth quarter, nothing's changing.
I had like 16 assists, but it was just like I thought it was a terrible game from Rondo. Like when Bellinelli's a lead scorer as well for the Kings, I think that's going to be a bad game because it means they're chasing and they've got him on just throwing up threes, and he's a lead scorer of 17. So yeah, it wasn't the finest hour.
No.
Oh, should we move on to? Should we even talk about the Golden State Warriors game? It was over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
the first 8 minutes, the Kings' defense was really good and locked in, and then Curry went off.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can do there. I think he scored like 17 points in the first quarter.
I think.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty rough. A lot of those were free throws that they got into foul trouble pretty quickly. The Kings.
3 or 4 from 3, 6 or 6 at the free throw line.
I know that was a game where I'd rather have seen Collison's minutes match up more with Curry, just because I think he's like they're both fast and speedy, and he can maybe keep up with him a bit more, and you just have him glued to him. But they do seem to have like a system that is quite good at controlling the Golden State Warriors for a bit. But as soon as the Kings' offense breaks down and like bogs down like it did in the third quarter, those bad baskets just turn into easy points, especially for a team like Golden State Warriors that can just obliterate you. And like Brandon Rush in the third quarter had like 14 points, and that's just ridiculous. I think it was like the first, first 3.5 minutes of the third quarter, the Kings were minus 12. And so that just kind of killed the game. There's no real coming back from that. Seth Curry had a nice little run at the end of the game and hit a couple of threes. So that was kind of good to see. But
where do you feel like Seth Curry's minutes should be?
Probably around, I think he should be the 10th man, like 10 minutes. And you just bring him on for like a couple of spurts when you just want extra shooting, and say the other team's gone to a two-point guard lineup, or say like someone's in foul trouble and you want an extra point guard. Those are kind of the scenarios. So I'd rather, if you're going to go 2-point guards, I'd rather Seth and Darren Collison than Rondo on the floor, just because especially if you're playing Rondo off the ball, and which is happening a lot. Like the ball's not in Rondo's hands and he's standing in the corner, and that really just doesn't help the offense. And we've seen so many bad possessions because of that. So if you're going to go 2-point guards or like 2 playmaking guards, I'd rather see Curry out there than Rondo. Or I think you can play him off ball with Rondo, but then you've got kind of 2 negative defenders as well. So that's kind of another issue. You don't have like a really great wing defender that you can have 2 bad defenders. And I think Seth Curry's been pretty like an average defender. Is better than I thought he would be, but you can't really put him on most shooting guards. He's done pretty well against point guards, I thought, though. But yeah, I mean, we weren't really expecting to win this game, I don't think.
Well,
Golden State. No one can beat the Warriors. Oh yeah, maybe we picked them to win, but that's just blind optimism. Yeah. Just slowly getting vision.
Never again.
So what's the next game we're going to touch on? Was the Dallas game the next one?
Yep, Dallas.
So this was Boogie's like comeback, and he looked really good this game and looked awful since, which is kind of a shame, especially that fourth quarter. He just went off, and he just got to the line so much. I think he had like 16 points to end that game in the fourth quarter. So that was really impressive. And I thought Gay had like a pretty good game as well. They don't really have. I think he took advantage of like when Chandler Parsons couldn't play anymore because he's kind of on limited minutes. And yeah, so I thought that was pretty good. And when he was matched up on Dirk, I thought that was a good matchup for the Kings as well. What was your kind of thoughts from this game? I think obviously it was good, like this, to come back from, I think they were down 14 points at one point. So it was a pretty good comeback in the second half. So yeah, I thought this game was good, and didn't see a huge amount of Rondo, but I thought he had a pretty good game. Scored quite a bit. He was like hitting threes right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned you didn't see much wrong, but I feel like he played 30 minutes. Most of his minutes came third quarter, first quarter. I feel like that's kind of where it should be. I feel like we kind of saw here how Rondo should be used.
Yeah, not playing in the fourth.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it worked. You mentioned the big fourth quarter for Boogie. Just everything kind of flowed. You had Collison out there for entire fourth quarter with Boogie. You had Caspi. It worked.
And that was partly because like Collison was like playing really well, but also they were hacking Rondo. So maybe that kind of lingered in his mind. When they were hacking Rondo, they didn't pull him. He at the end of the game, he was making free throws, so they kind of had to stop. But I thought that was interesting. And Carl after kind of said that they're fine with keeping him on. But it's just interesting because to have him on the court, he's not great defensively, but then you can't put his hand, especially in the last 2 minutes, you can't put the ball in his hands because you can't get fouled off the ball. So I don't see the value of him. 'Cause, I mean, we've seen Rondo being subbed out for defensive possessions, or hidden on like the least offensive guy. So it's just interesting to me. It's like Rondo isn't giving you much defensively, and then you can't put the ball in his hand. Like, why is he on the court when you're hacking him? And it's different to like a big who can like set screens or do other things. Like Rondo's biggest values with the ball in his hand, and then so if you're kind of scared to put the ball in his hand, then I don't see how he can be on the court. So that's just my personal opinion.
No, I agree.
Was there anything else from that game, or should we move on to Mexico?
I think move on to Mexico.
So this game got out of hand really quickly.
Was game of the year?
Pardon? Worst game of the year?
Yeah.
Could be, yeah. I mean, but then since listening to Aaron Bruski kind of talk about the altitude stuff and how being there for the extra day, and I think since then as well, I've seen kind of things pop up with the Houston game. One of the Houston announcers had tweeted out something how like the Mexico trip, Houston never recovered from it for a week, just because of like the amount of things you have to do, like the extra press, and they do the NBA care stuff and like that. So for the team that's out there for longer, it maybe is more taxing. And I think you could see that in the likes of like Rondo gave up on that game really quick, got 2 technicals. Boogie didn't have any lift. He got in foul trouble early, didn't play any of the fourth quarter because the game was over, but he was also had 5 fouls. And I think that's like partly down to just like not having any lift, and so it makes him harder to defend verticality. It's like even Kufos didn't play a huge amount. And I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein didn't play much, but he got into foul trouble early. We saw quite a bit of Seth Curry in this game, and he looks okay. I think, yeah, it was just an odd game. I think this is maybe a good game for Collison to kind of just have the ball on his own for a bit, but then he didn't really end the game. Still probably played a bit too much with Rondo for my liking, but I don't think that's ever going to change. But he had from like when Rondo got fouled out for like a good maybe 12 or so minutes playing on his own. And I think that was good for his confidence, and to like find his shot again. But overall, yeah, it was a pretty horrible game. And Isaiah Thomas just absolutely went ham. It's a shame. He'd be really fun in a Kings uniform.
Yeah, he would.
I mean, like Kelly Olynyk, like just had an incredible game, and like that's just bad. And most of the time it was like when he was playing when Kufos was on the court, and he just couldn't stick with him outside. So yeah, that wasn't great. And Quincy AC had like a little spell where he got kind of the Kings were pretty bad. So yeah, they've got to, now that Willie Cauley-Stein's out for. Oh yeah, and Willie Cauley-Stein split open his finger and is going to be out for what, 6 to 8 weeks? Is that?
Yep.
Or it's
the open fracture,
which is pretty gruesome. So it'll be interesting whether we see like Seth Curry enter into the 9-man rotation, or they just stick with an 8-man rotation. Maybe with the way Boogie's looking, you want to, I guess, they'll play more small ball. They've been starting Caspi, which I like. I think that's a really smart move. It does hurt not having Caspi to come off the bench, but you can kind of stagger those minutes somewhat. But that's kind of what I would do. So it's just whether you stick with, like, you split all the 4 minutes between Caspi. They seem to have sometimes when Kufos and Boogie play together. I'd rather just try and have Caspi and Gay playing the 4 and sometimes and then play together at times. So you both give them kind of like towards 30 minutes a night. I think that would be kind of the best case for me. But yeah, this game was horrible. I don't really want to. I don't think we should talk about it much. Although the next game wasn't much better. Had times when I thought the Kings might be in it. But is there anything from the Mexico game you wanted to touch on?
James Anderson played.
That was kind of like at the end of the game when it was over, wasn't it?
Yeah,
The last 5 minutes.
mm,
It was over. That's like when they put in the bench.
yeah. But didn't you say, yeah, as you said or a little bit, or I think DM 2 days that James Anderson minutes are.
Oh yeah, he came back. Yeah, so I guess this maybe reminded Carl that James Anderson existed, and that really hurt the Kings against the Thunder. I felt.
Yeah.
So he didn't play at all against Houston, I don't think.
Nope.
So that's good. Hopefully we don't see him for a while. Although maybe we're trying to build up his trade value and trade him for like Josh Smith. I think Josh Smith would be fun now when you have Willie Cauley-Stein out for a bit. You have like someone else that can create and can play the 4, and then you even if you're just getting like 15 minutes out of Josh Smith, I think that would be useful at the 4. So James Anderson for Josh Smith trade, I'd be up for that. I don't think you can trade either of them until maybe December the 15th or January the 15th. I'm not sure, but I'd like that trade. There's a rumor, Josh Smith is on the block. So
Yeah, Josh Smith and I think Lance Stevenson.
yeah, and because there was obviously that Rudy Gay Snapchat saying next king, so maybe he will be the next king.
Yeah.
So that'd be fun, and obviously that would just make like the locker room a bit tighter, like even tighter and player centric, which I think we've seen.
The media would love it.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't think he would hurt that much. He'd be in a very limited role here, but quite useful whilst Willie's out. But then maybe that hurts like Willie's chances of playing when he comes back. Although maybe like Willie being away kind of makes Cole realize how valuable he is, how good he's been.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about the Ben McLemore game then against Houston? He played 42 minutes, the first half of a back-to-back. And so in the second quarter, he scored 11 points. He had 2 shots in the third quarter, hit both of them, 2 threes. He didn't have a single look in the fourth quarter. To me, that's just like gross mismanagement of someone that's hot, like playing well. He played for 40 minutes. Like he was really good defensively as well. He had, I think, I'm pretty sure he had 3 steals. He was rebounding the ball really well. And that's something that's really useful if you play. And something you really need to see Ben McLemore do that he hasn't been great at. If you're playing those 2-point guards, you need your guard that's playing up at the small forward position to rebound the ball better. And like Ben's been a below average rebounder. So that was good. And he was hitting open threes. He was kind of in a rut for a bit where he didn't really shoot that well. He was at like 44% for a while and then dipped below 40%. I think this game got him back up to 40. But yeah, I just think we've seen this so many times when Ben's been hot, then he doesn't see the ball again. And it is kind of frustrating. And to me, it's like this game as well, you saw kind of like the lack of offense and just the ball dying in spots. There's some instances where like Rudy will get the ball and it was an open look and then he like literally like 6 foot free in front of him and he drives the ball, and every time he gets like passed around the top of the arc, every time he gets it, he doesn't just shoot or pass, or not often. He'll take like a couple of dribbles, and it's just like the ball slows down every time he gets it. And it's like I think you can play tempo with Rudy Gay because he's really great into transition, but he needs to learn at least at the beginning of early in the shot clock to not let the ball die in his hands. I think we saw instances of that this game, and then where I thought he was pretty good. I think it was the Dallas game. He was really good where the ball kept moving. He took advantages of when he had like smaller guards on him, and that's something you kind of need to see more. Is like him taking advantage of small mismatches and taking those into the post, and like trying to take big guys off the dribble or pulling them to like shooting threes and spacing, and so you're taking the 4 out of the paint. That's what he's got to do, not like every time he gets the ball drive into 4s because he's shooting really badly. at the 4. He's got a terrible shooting efficiency at the 4, but a really good one at the 3, and he played really well at the 4 last year, but just kind of in a different role. I saw him shoot more threes against the Thunder, and maybe that's because it's like a bigger, like a more physical 4 in Serge Ibaka, so he respects that player more. So maybe that's some part of it. But yeah, that's been kind of like a bone in contention with Rudy, and he's shown flashes of like understanding when it's like he's got a guard on him or like a smaller 3 he can put down on the block, but then he's just driving all the time and it's not working. But yeah, I thought Ben had a great game, and it's just a shame the Kings didn't take advantage of it. And then because he played so many minutes, he couldn't really play the second half of the back-to-back. So maybe that's why we saw James Anderson, not because he's good, because he's not. What was your thoughts on the Houston game? Because it got close. I think the Kings were in the lead around the 5-minute mark, and then Rudy Gay came in, and then the Kings lost. Which is just like, it really is like pretty much that simple. It's like Collison came out and Kufos came out, Caspi and Gay came in, so they went like smaller in the middle, and then but less of a guard. And Collison was having a really good game. Rondo had just come in as well, like a couple of minutes before. So that's another instance where I'd rather see Collison. He only played 21 minutes that game. I'd rather just see him finish off the game, and he was doing pretty good job defensively as well.
Yeah,
and I mean McLemore had like Harden scored 31 points, but McLemore was kind of going blow for blow for him in this game, and then Harden just kept getting shots because he's the alpha dog and kept getting to a free throw line, and whereas the Kings didn't run for that hard in that game.
I mean, you touched on it, but like, given how hot McLemore was in the first, second quarter, 3 total shots in about 21 minutes in the second half.
It's just stupid. Yeah,
it's completely unacceptable.
It happened so many times last year as well.
Asinine, but as you said, it keeps happening. It's just where's the basketball intelligence to know this player's hot? You need to get him the ball more.
Yeah, it's obviously not there. And then instead, like Rudy came in and he had in that second half he played like 5 minutes in the fourth quarter and had 3 shots, 2 of them misses, and 2 missed 2s, like when you're trailing. And he had 1 went for a 2-point attempt with like a minute left to go when you're down 6 or so. It's like that's when you shoot 3-pointers, not contested 2s, and that's just like bad basketball IQ as well. Rondo also has been like, I felt this game he took quite a few shots he shouldn't have. Like in the second half, I think he took 5 shots, made 1, and then he got to the line a little bit, but not a huge amount. So that's kind of when he's not hitting shots. I think he just has to not shoot and kind of figure that out early. It's like, or like he can shoot early in a game. I think that's kind of fine, but then later in the game, he maybe shouldn't, because the possessions get more valuable as you get on in the game.
Yeah.
Was there anything else? I mean, they I thought they kind of did better at dealing with Capella, but we've seen, I think there's the Golden State Warriors with Azili this game, and the Thunder, like the Kings are being destroyed by lobs. So that's kind of something to watch out. And we've seen that back with like those early Clippers games. They defended the lobs really well, and now they've kind of lost that. And yeah, they're getting destroyed by lobs. So whether they have to like blitz the pick and roll to not allow that pass, or they like don't have as much weak side rotation, so you're not leaving that big to catch oops. Like something's got to change there, because it's been really easy points for teams. Howard had a bunch of those kind of easy baskets. Capella had a couple. So that's like another kind of issue we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah. Well, and there's just so many easy baskets it seems given up. It's just
But again, a really good third quarter, and that seems to be like a trend, is that they're getting really good production in the third quarter. So that's a positive at least. There's like there are only like it's just the fourth quarter. If they're not up by 10, I don't think they're going to win.
Yeah,
and that's kind of scary. And it's because the offense is just so stagnated, and like the best offense is like when teams are missing shots and they can run in transition. Other than that, there's not like good offense. And Boogie's just not getting enough touches in the post. He's not particularly playing well, but I'd rather have him not play well in the post because he's still going to get to the free throw line. Although if we move on to the Thunder, he's like obviously missed a lot of free throws.
yeah, that Thunder game got bad.
So yeah, they were up at. I mean, I completely thought they were out of it in the third quarter. So this is probably the game they had the bad third quarter and then a great fourth quarter. Maybe the Thunder kind of stepped off the gas a bit, and they maybe played their bench a bit too long. In particular, Cantor and Waiters. Although Waiters played the whole of the fourth quarter. But yeah, Boogie this is the game where he just looked terrible, and James Anderson was awful. I think his first spell, he came in, he missed 2 bad shots and gave up like a bad foul. Then he came back in again, had a turnover to end the third quarter. Then the beginning of the fourth quarter had another foul, and then that was his night. So it was pretty frustrating. And McLemore only played 19 minutes, probably because he played 42 the night before. I don't think it helps like playing Boogie 36 minutes when he just doesn't look right. I'd rather just like don't play him as much and get him healthy. That's going to be, you're going to have more wins if he's playing well, like if he's healthy. Collison had pretty good defense on Westbrook though. I was impressed with that. What was your thoughts from the game before we review the last 2 minutes?
Well, and we mentioned that Maxwell's minutes might have gone down because he played like 40 the night before. But I mean, if it's that situation where you need the minutes, you need to conserve his minutes, why is he not playing? From 6 minutes left in the third quarter on, he was done for the day. He didn't play. He didn't see the floor.
He had like 1 bad turnover in the third quarter, but I don't think it was bad enough to get pulled because I mean, Rudy Gay had a worse turnover like just before. So yeah, I don't think it was because of that, but who knows? Carl has done like some weird things with young guys if they make the smallest mistake.
Yeah, I just don't get some of the minutes how they're managed. It's just frustrating.
But Collison was hitting threes, especially at the end of the game. He was part of the reason why they had that like late comeback. So he was playing well. Bellinelli hit some shots, but he hasn't really been playing well at all. I think Bellinelli's been like the most disappointing kind of addition. Kufos has like struggled with those little hooks. But I think that's also, he struggled more when he's been playing starters. So I think now that they're going this, because Willie's gone out, he's going to have to play bench guys. He'll probably have a bit more success because it's just the lesser talent and kind of who he's used to going up against. So that'll probably help.
Yeah.
But should we watch the last 2 minutes and kind of go through the misery again?
Yeah. So just real quickly, one thing we are going to be trying now, of course, could fail miserably. Then we're going to abandon it and run from it and imagine it didn't happen. So one thing we're just going to try is taking segments or moments from games, recording them, putting them on here so we can go through it a little bit. And you can see us as we relive all the pain. So it's going to be fun. If you're like a masochist who likes pain, you're going to love this segment. I'm just sharing that with you right now.
Well, hopefully in the future we have some fun like last 2 minutes. Because we really haven't had that many tight games this year. There's either been like kind of comfortable wins where it's kind of turned into mayhem the last 2 minutes and teams have caught up but never really been like a back and forth, whereas this kind of, it wasn't really back and forth, but it was like the Kings were up and then down. Whereas last year, this kind of around this amount of time, just before Malone got fired, it felt like there was loads of games that were really close. Ones that shouldn't have been, like the Memphis one, but they like ended on buzzer beaters. Well, we really haven't had a buzzer beater yet, although maybe Rudy's non-buzzer, non-attempt, which I'm sure we're going to see.
Yeah, so this will start with 1:15 left in the fourth quarter. Kings are up 2, and they have the ball. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, it's a bit rough, but actually I'll fix it onto that screen. So hopefully, yeah, it should say fixed. Do you want to rewind it back? Because that's like, I think this like shows it's like just the spacing's really bad. It's like when you have Rondo coming off the ball, and he was like guarded by Durant. But yeah, that's just like annoying. It's like there's really bad spacing, and then you have Collison like trying to go for a rebound, or was that Rondo trying to get a rebound, offensive rebound? And that's just like that probably made Collison have to force that foul because there's not someone out there to like stop the ball. So if you have Rondo not attack that offensive glass, because he's rarely going to out rebound Durant, he can put pressure on that ball instead of Collison having to foul from behind. So then I think Westbrook misses one of these, as you can see by DC celebrating. So then was this where Boogie went to the line and had 2 missed. So at least they went to the post here, which you haven't seen much of. I mean, ideally you would rather Bellinelli waited a bit until Boogie got more depth on that, and then you're also taking some time off the clock. When you're up by 1, you probably don't want to be getting the ball into the post with 11 seconds. And this is kind of one issue I've had with the Kings offense is like, when you don't get something in those first 12 seconds, then it should move into like a post offense. We haven't really seen that. It's been like, once it gets down to 10 seconds, it's whoever's got the ball is like, or if it ends up with Rudy, then he has a tough shot.
Yeah, there's not a lot of patience.
And these were big missed free throws. I mean, if these goes down, the Kings probably win. Or maybe it changes the way that OKC like attacks. They have to look for 3s instead of 2s. So Kufos came in for Bellinelli, which is interesting. I think now we see the pick and roll with Durant where Kufos gets switched onto it, and this was the winning bucket. And Kufos defended this pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, I wonder about, but looking back at it, there's not a whole lot there's.
I mean, maybe you don't want to switch there, so you keep Rudy on it, or maybe you blitz Durant and you let Steven Adams, and you have someone rotate you have Boogie rotate on the weak side to take Steven Adams. But yeah, I mean that was pretty good defensive. Well, it looked like both Rudy went as well, so Rudy obviously didn't call what they were doing. So yeah, it's like Rudy's trying to ice it as well, so he's not allowing the middle of the court, forcing the other way. But yeah, you'd maybe rather force that, but I mean, Durant's going to make those shots, so there's not much you can do. So now this is the horrible end to the game. So I guess I think it's been interesting, the comments after this.
Yes, George Karl's comments.
Yeah, so Karl said that there was a play for Gay, but that wasn't to run out the clock. Rudy owned it, saying it was a mistake. At least they cleared out with Collison in the far corner, but like Collison didn't even know what was happening. He was walking in from the 3-pointer. He wasn't staying out to give space, which meant his defender could help easier. As you'll see just here, he's already walking in. And then he tries to run back out, and just like as many times as we've seen, like Rudy loses his handle. If he's maybe a bit more patient, maybe Collison can like get a backdoor but no, they kind of take away the back door as well, so maybe he has to get it out quicker.
Yeah.
Just Rudy's handle's been really bad when driving, and that's basically what he did. He just lost his handle. And like on a big, he should really be like pulling up to take a jumper instead of like driving into a big's body.
There's just not much about what happened here that's understandable. Yeah. But it's
Rudy's game. He's trying to get that fadeaway, baseline fadeaway, which is a pretty horrible shot. But it's interesting, like DeMarcus Cousins kind of took some ownership. He was like, guys, we shouldn't have been in that position. I played like shit. So that's like, that's amazing from Boogie. So at least like we heard like the right things. So I thought that was really good from Boogie, just to be like, yeah, I played like shit. It's my fault.
And then there's this final shot here, which I think during broadcast they're saying, that he took a shit, but there was plenty of time left.
Yeah, the one time he didn't pump fake and he just threw it really off. It was also, it probably was Rondo probably held on to the ball too long. If he got that pass off a bit sooner, it is a really tough pass. But yeah, so it looked like the play was for Collison first. So he comes off those screens at the key, but obviously didn't have enough space. And then there's like a couple of seconds, and if he just pump faked and then trend shot, but it was an air ball instead.
I think as you mentioned, he was near the end of the inbound clock, so it's just getting it.
But if you see, like, so you probably want Marco to come off the screen now. Instead, he's looking to see if Collison gets the ball, whereas really he should, and now he's running when he's
just react instead of, and
then that ball should be thrown then. Like as soon as Collison isn't open, it should be thrown to the spot Bellinelli's going to be at. That's probably like how you want it to be done. So maybe it was more the play broke down, and that was like the best they got out of it. So it would have been good look if it's like thrown to Marco now. That's probably a good look, but I mean, Marco could even grabbed it and like caught it, pump faked. He probably gets like a foul or like drive to the basket, like right there. If he like pump faked that,
do you think
defenders flying at him?
Do you think he lost track of how much time was left on the shot clock?
I mean, he should know that was 4 seconds. He just came out of a timeout. But I mean, we've seen this quite a lot where you just maybe like your instincts and you think, oh man, there's been a lot of time.
Yeah, maybe he thought there was a second, 1.4 left. I don't know.
Like hoping for a rebound. You've got DeMarcus Cousins, but I mean, DeMarcus is out of the. It's like the closest person to getting a rebound is Rondo. So you don't even have your bigs crashing the boards. There's maybe an issue where like your bigs aren't around the basket so much; they're just not crashing boards.
Just hanging around the 3-point line.
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty disappointing into the game because when they're up 4, like after their comeback, like you felt they could have won, and maybe if they took more time off Marco and got that ball into Boogie a bit later and a bit deeper in the post, maybe that would have made a better shot. And he's always going to, like, late in games, always going to get fouls as well because they're just scared to get stuff wrong. So yeah, that would be kind of like takes more time off the shot clock, maybe get a better look being deeper in the post. And then, yeah, just Rudy's mess. But hopefully that's like Rudy learns from that. 'Cause it's been kind of like interesting to me when he said like, oh, it's up to me and DeMarcus to like carry the team. And it's like, we need Rudy to not, his mindset's got to be like, I've got to be like one cog in the team, not like be like him and Boogie are the shoulders on which the body's being dragged along on. So I think that's like an inherent flaw in like Rudy's mindset at the moment.
Yeah, something we're gonna have to live with because 9 years into the league, if your mindset hasn't changed, it's not going to.
But I mean, he played better like the last year, so maybe it's also just like the offensive scheme. There's not many like offensive sets. It's kind of floppy set for shooters, and then pick and roll, and that's about it. And then ISOs. There's not much like, a lot of it's like read and react, but then there's a couple of guys the ball dies with. Pretty much Rondo and Rudy the ball dies with, and they'll dribble, and then Rondo looks for the assist, and Rudy looks for like a drive, and that's kind of and that kind of slows down the offense, in my opinion. And even like Marco, the ball kind of dies with him as well a bit. So yeah, there's like, maybe they just need to, this week where you only have 2 games, you need to maybe insert more offense, and maybe change defensively. Although I think against the Thunder, defensively they were good, but like you can't just be good when you're playing the big names. And there hasn't really been that intensity when switching. Because like when you switch and you're a smaller guy, you need to be like physical to at least slow down. We saw times when that worked really well on Durant, when like Rondo or Collison were really physical with Durant, and then a double team would come, and Durant held on to the ball too long and it'd force a turnover. Durant had like 10 turnovers in that game, which is a huge reason why the Kings were even in it. So yeah, you either have to always play with that intensity, and that's how the Golden State Warriors can do it, is they have small guys that will play positions up, but play with intensity and physicality that kind of make up for size. You either have to do that or just scrap the scheme if it's not working. But should we talk about today's game? And there's just one other.
Yeah, just 2 games this week. We got game at home, 2 home games against Utah tonight, and then Thursday, Knicks come to town.
So I think the Jazz will be interesting. Hayward and Gay are like kind of similar style players, so that could be kind of an interesting matchup, whether they actually face each other or not. Maybe they have Caspi play the 4 more. The Jazz have been, since Gobert's been out, they've been mixing up who their second big is. So they may react and go small and play favors at center. We'll have like Trey Lyles at the 4. So that could be something we'll see. I think that's what I would do against the Kings. And then they also have times when they go with no point guard, which is kind of interesting. So we'll see how the Kings, whether they go 2 point guards whilst they're going no point guards. So that's kind of where they go like Ingles, Burke, and then so that'll be kind of interesting to see kind of how the Jazz look. And then Porzingis against Boogie, that'll be kind of fun as well.
Yeah, we're get to see Porzingis.
I'll probably be Porzingis against Gay. But yeah, it should be a fun game. And Carmelo against George Karl, so can have snakes in the grass emoji match.
Can't wait. For the Jazz tonight, it's going to be their line. Just Raul Neto.
He doesn't play much.
Yeah,
like he'll play a little bit. He's been hitting threes really well, but then they'll have like Trey Burke comes off the bench, and then they'll have like Damian Inglis and with their no point guard lineup. But they just kind of start with someone that can handle.
And I guess Neto has an injury right now. Report has thing taped over his 2 fingers, so pretty much doesn't play much. Trey Lyles, Rodney Hood,
Really
Gordon
good.
Hayward. Yeah,
it's been playing really good.
And then Favors coming off a crazy, sensational game. Dropped 35 points with 13 rebounds.
So yeah, him against Boogie should be fun. And I assume, both teams will probably go relatively small. Like Lyles he played the 3 for Kentucky, but who's really a 4. But just because they had Karl-Anthony Towns and Willie Cauley-Stein, he kind of had to play the 3. But yeah, so that'll be kind of interesting. A shame we don't get to see Willie against Trey Lyles, but oh well. Should we do predictions then?
Yeah.
I'm going 2-0. Screw it. And so this is going to be because the Kings have played a lot of games, so this is going to be the time when they're like catching up to like other teams are going to be catching up to the amount of games played. So we'll kind of get a better kind of feel. But I mean, if the Kings beat the Jazz, that kind of almost counts as like a 2-game swing. So it's a pretty important game. kind of similar to the Timberwolves one for me in terms of like if you get a win, it counts a lot. If it's a lose, it hurts twice as much.
Yeah. I'll go with 0-2.
Okay, so hopefully I'm right.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah,
I mean,
because
like the Knicks aren't very good, especially like with Jose Calderon, who's terrible. Afalo hasn't been great. It's just Porzingis is like fun, but I think maybe at least he'll be playing again. It's a shame we don't have kind of like two big, so we can't play Boogie and Porzingis because I don't think Porzingis could deal with Boogie. But maybe like we try and force that.
I just realized this: the Kings Nets game is going to be on TNT.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be Chris Webber and Chuck, Boogie's best friends. It's going to be calling it.
That'll be.
They were really fun. Those Boogie subtweets at Chuck that then got deleted like a bit later. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, or should we leave this misery hangout?
Yeah, we'll once again be back next week. So there's just 2 games this week, and I think we kind of talked about how we're nearing the point where we know we're going to find out what the team exactly is. Granted, there's been injuries and some crazy, sad stuff that's just sucked for the Kings. Yeah, so next week we'll probably have more of a. We'll be about 24 games in, so we'll have a better idea of what this team is, and maybe have a first quarter recap, first third of the season recap, something around there.
And then it's what the Rockets again, Timberwolves, Raptors, and Wizards. So after these 2 games, there's some more winnable games there. Like I count the Rockets, Timberwolves, and Wizards the way the Wizards are playing as all winnable. And then obviously we beat the Raptors when they came to Sacramento. So they're kind of an offense that is really easy for the Kings to play against because they're so slow. It really helps the Kings.
The fact that the Lakers still are employing Byron Scott, who's now benched D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle for no reason at all. Thank you, Lakers, for doing that. And just
they need to keep their pick, so they're trying hard to give the most chance of keeping their pick. And I mean, I wasn't a big fan of D'Angelo Russell, but yeah, not playing him is not going to help.
At least Byron Scott's a big fan of Kobe and him attempting 30 shots a game.
Well, because I know no one's going to remember that he like took 30 shots a game. They're just going to remember like how many games he played his last year. So I guess that's kind of the important thing. So that's probably why they stick with him, because whoever else comes in is not going to play Kobe. So.
All right, here's one more question for you, because it's been some discussion for when Kobe comes to town. As a Kings fan, if you were at the game on, I think, January 7th, when Kobe's last game at Arco, I refuse to call it Sleep Train Arena. When Kobe's on the court and his final appearance, do you give him a standing applause? Do you chant "Thank you, Kobe," or do you boo him?
You cheer MVP when Boogie's at the line, and that's it. You just ignore Kobe, because that's like no one should be really watching him or talking about him for the last 2 years. Yeah. So you just ignore him, because he's not he shouldn't be a story anymore. That'd be my approach, but then I'm an arsehole.
Yeah, Kevin Durant's not a fan of your response.
But I mean, yeah, it's just like so many people are talking about him, and it's like if you just didn't talk about him, then like he may not have played for this last year. Well.
Yeah. So for the Sac Off podcast, that's going to wrap up this week. It wasn't as sad as I was expected. So
I try and keep it slightly up, because like we had the Ben McLemore game, and that was fun, and he was playing so well. Just like he was rebounding really aggressively, getting steals. That was really fun. Ben McLemore was probably my favorite King to like watch when he's playing well to watch. It's just a shame.
When people were freaking out about Ben McLemore and saying it was done. That was a fun time.
I did a thing, just like a fan post on Sacktown Royalty, and looking at Nylon Calculus have an average production per 36 minutes per position, and so I looked. They also have a thing like estimated per position production, and so there's an interesting thing with both Ben, Gay, and Collison is they've been playing a lot worse statistically against their position counterparts when they're playing up. So almost half of Ben's minutes have been at the free, and he's playing much worse at the free. So whether that's he's struggling against more size, or he just doesn't know the spots on the floor he should be at. But then as a two, he's average, if not above average. His shooting efficiency is above average, and then kind of everything else is around average per 36 minutes. So as much as people shit on McLemore and not contributing, he's an average shooting guard. Shooting guards are probably like the thinnest position at the moment in the NBA, but for a team where you have like DeMarcus Cousins, if you just have an average shooting guard, like if your fourth player is average or your fifth player is average, like I think that's fine. Especially when you have Caspi, who's like above average at both the 3 and the 4. And there's like they have DeMarcus Cousins is always playing center, which I kind of disagree with. So they make Willie Cauley-Stein a 4 and Kufos a 4 when playing with Kufos. So there are some noise in these numbers. But I thought that was interesting. So if you go on Sacktown Royalty, there's a fan shows things called like Kings versus the average or something, average position. But I thought that was interesting. So like Ben's at least an average guard, and I think half of his games have been like bad. So that's like really positive if he's an average guard and he hasn't been playing great or like doesn't have the opportunity to do much within the way the team's set up. I think if he was on a team like the Spurs or Atlanta, where like kind of everyone touches the ball and gets opportunities if they're open, I think he would be a really good player. So it's just until he gets the right opportunity or right coach, really.
It's going to be the San Antonio Spurs in like a year or two who'll make it all work for him.
Yeah, he probably will be like the next Danny Green or something.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. But Danny Green's been really struggling. So.
Yeah, that was a fun time. We wanted them to come to Sacramento.
I mean, there was someone who was saying that something where it's like, maybe it was Aaron Bruce even, where it's like when you have a new big piece come in, that's what your focus is on, like getting that new piece in. And so then your fourth and fifth guy are kind of, they're the last problems you deal with. So, I mean, the Spurs will work it out by the time they get to the playoffs. I mean, Kyrie's playing incredibly, so and he's who I've got my MVP money on. I put some money on Boogie and Kawhi to win MVP, so hopefully Steph Curry comes down a bit. I think I put some on Steph as well, but not too much.
You're also going to cash on the Cam Newton MVP.
Oh yeah, I put a lot on that, so that was smart.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good time.
I did Cam, I did Brady and Gronk for MVP. Those are my bets.
I like it. Yeah. I think that's going to wrap it up for the Sac Off podcast. We will be back next week. As mentioned, we'll be about 24 games into the Kings season, so it'll be kind of a recap show about all that's going on. So it's going to be a fun time for the 2 people or 3 people who are listening to us. Stay tuned.
Or in hundreds of years when looking back on this famous year.
Yeah, this is just something great.
Well, or just like a memory of an awful time. But maybe it'll get better.
You just wait, people, the 2 people listening. It's going to happen where 5-6 years from now, we'll be doing this from Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Sacramento.
When Boogie looks good, the Kings are playing well. So that's still, it's just got to wait for Boogie to be better.
Boogie, please be healthy.
Yeah, please.
Be healthy.
Hopefully you'll go to have a nice like spa weekend.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And James Anderson disappears.
Yeah. Trade for Josh Smith. That's Michael. Have you got a trade idea you'd like?
It's
got to be James Anderson revolved. Because he's got quite a bit of money and he has like a player option. So the only way we're getting rid of him in the next 2 years if he's traded.
Does Phoenix want James Anderson just for fun?
No, I think Devin Booker's playing pretty well. They don't need another guy. And like you can do the Markieff Morris. He needs more money. See, Evan Fournier was looking for £10 million for his extension from the Magic, so he's going to be looking for a lot of money in free agency.
Yeah.
But I think Josh Smith that would work financially as well. Josh Smith for James Anderson. So that's my trade idea. And I think like the Clippers would, if they're getting rid of Lance Stevenson as well, or like just cutting him, to have like someone who can play the wing, that's kind of useful.
Yeah.
So that's my call. Quincy Acey and James Anderson for Josh Smith. And
did you see? I forgot who was. There was a report that Ryan Anderson's going to get a max contract.
No way. Who by the Pelicans or someone else?
Someone reported Ryan Anderson as possibly gets a max contract, and was it Akis?
Oh yeah, Sam.
Yeah,
He used to report for the Kings.
Yeah, he was saying, did his agent report that?
Like, I don't know. I didn't see that report.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
I mean, he hasn't looked great since his back injury, but I mean, I think just there's going to be so many teams with max money that maybe he'll come to Sacramento. It's like we heard Vlade Divac talk about like the one piece they were looking to add was a stretch four. Obviously, Ryan Anderson is the prototype of that, and he's fine with coming off the bench. So that'd be kind of, imagine if you have a bench of Collison, Bellinelli, Caspi, Ryan Anderson, and Kufos. That's a pretty lethal bench. Because all those guys are under contract as well. And I guess it depends like how much you give to Rondo. I think I saw somewhere saying like Rondo will be getting a max deal after his performance.
Yeah, I think Rick Carlisle said.
I wouldn't be giving him a max deal, but
Rick, if you want to give Rondo a max contract, go right ahead.
Yeah, that would be the last thing I'd do. Yeah, I've not really. It's like he's like better getting into the rim than I thought he would be, but just defensively, he only picks the days he's on, and you can't really have that, especially the amount of minutes he's playing. So, yeah, he's probably lost the Kings as many games as he's won, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we call it a night?
I think so. Yeah. So just thank you again for listening to Sac Off Podcast.
Goodbye.